going to do is I want to see what we are going to see the agenda every day. So I'll just talk about day one agenda, then we'll dive into the first topic for day one. So the day one today, we have a lot of topics to talk about. As you can see here, we have high level 3 topics. One is getting started with Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. I know like around 20% of you have experience with OCI, but majority, 80% of you are new to Oracle or new to Oracle Cloud itself. So this may help you to understand how to get started, what are the components of OCI, and most importantly, from a certification exam point of view, you are going to see the OCI concepts and terminology. So as Nishi pointed out earlier in the day, 3 things are important for you to get certified. And number 1 is these presentations and what we are discussing throughout the week. So the content and this agenda, everything is in line with your certification exam. So as per the certification exam topics, this agenda has been created, unlike any other workshop, any other webinar you might have seen. Second thing, in this workshop this week, you all know that it's very, very difficult to cover with a limited time, everything within like 2-3 hours on average. So I always point you guys to like documentation for further reading, so further references, further information. So number 1, follow the presentations, whatever we do throughout the week. Number 2, for further clarifications, refer the documentation as always, because Oracle is keep on updating the information in real time. So the documentation is a source of truth, always. Number 3 is hands-on. I know like a couple of you have mentioned that you are working on it and you just got OCI and so on. That will help you, because at the end of the day, if you are working on it, that adds more experience. So that is where we are going to see how to get started and how to get Oracle OCI instant. It will help you. Once you get access, once you have an environment to play with OCI, we are going to start our journey with the second topic, working with Identity and Access Management, IAM service. Because at the end of the day, you need to understand the security concepts around federation, around single sign-on, and how to create various users across various resources, what you see in OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Then of course, that is where the security side will discuss about users, groups, and various policies. How do you define it? For example, your developers should not access the production instances, production applications, and so on. That is very common. So those kind of scenarios we are going to see how to implement using security policies. Then of course, each one of the resources we are going to see have a certain unique identifier within Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. For example, if you are creating a VM virtual machine, it is going to have its own identifier. Similarly, storage, similarly other components we are going to see like compartments, VCN, Oracle Cloud Network, and so on. We'll talk about those anyway. So the identifier is very, very helpful for you when you are doing scripting. So that is a concept you need to understand, and around security side of it. Next one is most important one is creating a virtual cloud network. This is pretty much, I would say, the meat of OCI. Because the reason is very simple. When the customers are trying to move their on-prem data centers to the cloud, they are going to set up virtual data centers. So in the cloud, when they're setting up virtual data centers, you need to start your journey with topology, network topology. How the networks have been defined, the subnets, the routers, and various traffics, various IP addresses, CIDR range, and so on. That is where we are going to see, like in the third topic is creating a virtual cloud network, like in a short form VCN, the bottom of your screen, and how to do that. Now, of course, day 2, I will pause here. I don't want to go further because every day I want to visit and address what we talked about it, what we are going to discuss. okay, for the particular day. Again, tomorrow onwards, I will also include the browser-based agenda, the certification exam topics. That way you know what topic we are talking about it from a certification point of view. And if possible, tomorrow I'll also share a couple of links for you so that you can get ready for your exam. What are the people are saying in various blogs for recommendations point of view. So before going further, let me do a couple of things. Number one is, can you hear me okay? Audio check. If yes, please put a green check mark. That way I know that audio is fine. Thank you. So now let us go to the first topic is around introduction, right? So in the introduction side of it, what we are going to see is, let us talk about Oracle Infrastructure as a Service. As you know, Oracle in the cloud is the only vendor is providing all the three layers. For example, we are talking about infrastructure as a service. That is pretty much what Azure is doing it and AWS is doing it. As some of you said, you have experience on Azure. So in the same way, infrastructure is going to help to create the virtual machines. That is one thing. But coming to OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, Oracle is the only vendor in the cloud providing the bare metal. When I said bare metal is, you can see that it's a physical machine. You are going to get it in the cloud. When you have a physical machine, it means you can do whatever you want. That is your machine. That is your server. You can create the VMs on top of it, or you want to install some applications on top of it, is up to you. So that is what infrastructure as a service we are going to talk about. Second one Oracle is providing is a PaaS. Like a couple of you folks have mentioned you are working in Oracle PaaS. PaaS is a platform as a service. Like for example, your customers may be running Java applications. Your customers may be running database as a service. Or your customers are running BI, Business Intelligence, OBIE as a service. These are all platform services which running on top of infrastructure. And some of you might have heard from Oracle or from other resources saying that autonomous. Autonomous in the sense is these platform services are completely managed by the Oracle. You don't need to worry about patching, upgrades and so on. That is what autonomous services such as integration, then Analytics Cloud Service, OAC and so on comes in. And the last and final layer on top of it is a SaaS, software as a service. As a SaaS application, some of you said you are working in e-business suite, you are working on ERP and so on and so forth. These services are offered in the cloud, ERP cloud, supply chain cloud, and the sales cloud, marketing cloud, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of SaaS applications that are running on top of it. So that is what Oracle is offering. But this week, we are going to focus on IIS. Within IIS, there are a couple of options. One is OCI Classic, second one is OCI. So we'll talk about the differences shortly. So in this module, what we are going to see is what is Oracle IIS as the solution, big picture, infrastructure as a service. We are going to see that. Then we are going to talk about how to get these services for your company, for yourself, or for your customer. That is where subscription for these services comes in. I know like maybe 3 or 4 of you are having access to OCI. But for the benefit of others, we are going to talk briefly about how to get subscription in Oracle Cloud, especially around infrastructure as a service. So let us talk about the first one is what is Oracle IIS all about? Little bit of history in this case, we are talking about it. So Oracle is providing these data centers around the world. Like they are based in North America, for example, in Phoenix, Arizona, then Ashburn near Washington, D.C., then Chicago, and so on. Similar fashion, Oracle is having data centers within Europe in Frankfurt and London. Same thing in Asia Pacific in Sydney, Australia. I think a couple of you have mentioned you are from Australia. So the purpose of these data centers is to provide customers to create these solutions regionally, number one. And second thing is some customers, they want to prepare their data within their region. They don't want to cross other regions because reality cost. Bottom line is when the customers are trying to migrate their existing on-premise data center to cloud, they can look into these data centers which are available virtually or the wire. So depends upon your customer and their use cases, they may go for OCI or OCI-C. Coming to North America, everything is OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. There's nothing in OCI Classic. Like some of you, especially in APAC region, you might have seen OCI Classic, but it's slowly going to be fade out. But still some customers are using it, Oracle is going to support. That is one reason. Second reason is some of you might have heard like Cloud at Customer. Cloud at Customer is basically an engineered system running in the customer data center. So at the end of the day, we are going for OCI or OCI Classic. There are three building blocks are required: storage, compute, and network. Storage is elastic in nature because we are talking about cloud. Any cloud vendor has to support certain cloud features such as elasticity. In the sense, based upon the demand, it should expand, but there is no demand, it should collapse. That is what elastic storage we're talking about it. So storage is elastic as a part of the cloud solution. Number two is a compute, elastic compute. Based upon the customer requirements and based upon their applications, they should be able to scale up and scale down these instances. For example, in the case of say holiday season, in the Christmas time, when there is a lot of demand for the customer applications, they want to add more capacity in terms of creating multiple virtual machines, VMs, on the fly. When after New Year, maybe on January 2nd, they want to bring it down because everything is as holidays are over and everybody is back to business, so they don't need that much capacity. That is where elastic nature comes in, coming to the VM side as well. Finally, network software defined, SDN, software defined network, it's a pretty much backbone because that is where typically you need to start your journey, understanding customers on-premise data center network topology and try to bring it to the cloud. When you bring it to the cloud, you need to understand like perhaps various things. For example, how various subnets are created, private and public subnets, how various IP ranges have been defined based upon the CIDR, and what kind of a security firewalls you are allowing the traffic from and to. So these kind of things are pretty much defined in network side of it. Okay, now if you go to the compute, for example, Oracle is offering various solutions for you. This is for a little bit of history we are talking about it. And from architects, from the sales guys on the call, you are having all the offerings on the table. You can pick and choose what is required for your customer. For example, let us go from left to right on your screen. Bare metal. Oracle created this bare metal like maybe 2-3 years back by getting the engineers from AWS, Azure, and other Google and so on. They built this bare metal solution in Seattle pretty much from the ground up. So that is where we're talking about is Oracle is the only vendor in the cloud segment providing two solutions, virtual machines as well as physical machines. That is what the bare metal we're talking about it. And that later on, last year, the name has been changed to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, OCI, as we are referring right now. So if you have a bare metal, a physical machine, as you know, you can bring your own hypervisor. If you bring your own hypervisor, is basically you can run any virtual machine on top of it, like Windows, Linux flavors, or maybe Solaris and so on and so forth. You can also create Dockers and Docker clusters, like that is where the swarm, you can see it, you can see the Docker swarm. Now, second one is some of you are already familiar with OCI Classic. OCI Classic is basically 3-4 years back, roughly 4 years back, Oracle created this infrastructure as a service based upon Nimbula architecture. And based upon that, Oracle is creating the VMs, virtual machines. And as a part of that architecture, here you can see like Oracle is providing two solutions. One is Elastic Compute. Basically, that is what you pretty much what you do at AWS and Azure. You are creating bunch of VMs, virtual machines, whether it is Windows, Linux, Unix, Solaris, CentOS, and so on and so forth. You can create it based upon a hypervisor. Oracle is using Xen hypervisor in this case. And here, Elastic Compute in this case is kind of a general purpose because multiple tenants, multiple customers can share same physical server because they're having different VMs running on the same physical server. The advantage in this case is good for the customers and the tenants who want to do development and testing, POCs, training, demos, and so on and so forth. Then disadvantages, if you will, is pretty much there could be a noisy neighbor because you're sharing the resources. There could be sometimes may impact your application's performance. In that case, what do? OCI Classic side, you go for dedicated compute. The last but one on the right hand side, dedicated compute. As the name says, is dedicated top to bottom, the physical server, and on top of it, VMs are created. So it is for a single tenant. And this is where when the customers are want to do complete isolation, they can go for this. And obviously, since they are going for a dedicated compute, they need to pay more because that is where the minimum configuration in this case is 500 OCPUs, whereas Elastic Compute, the minimum configuration starts with 1 OCPU. OCPU, think about it, is Oracle Computing Unit. This is like a virtual CPU. We'll talk about it later on. But right now, think about it. That's how the difference is 1 versus 500 from a licensing point of view. Why do you care about OCI Classic? OCI Classic and OCI depends upon the customer, depends upon the region, like EMEA region, North America or APAC and so on. You may go for one, maybe or the other option. Second thing is based upon platform services. Like if you are looking for certain platform services, they may not be available in OCI, and in that case, you may go for OCI Classic. That's the other reason. Third reason is you go for OCI Classic is the clouded customer, because customers like certain customers in the government sector, healthcare, finance, and so on, they are very, very sensitive about the data, and they want to keep the data within the data center. And in that case, they want to go to the cloud, but they want to keep it in their on-prem. If that's the case, what you do? That is where an extreme right you can see engineered systems. And these engineered systems Oracle is delivering as a cloud at customer, you can use it. So pretty much same architecture like Elastic Compute and dedicated compute, same architecture. And it also comes with platform services, whatever the customers want. In this case, that is configured and delivered from the Oracle factory. That is where the clouded customer comes in, and this is a very, very popular in APAC region, in your region, pretty much. So that is like about OCI, OCI Classic, and clouded customer. In the center, you can see a couple of other options such as container service and Ravello. Let us talk about Ravello first. Some of you have mentioned that you have experience on VMware. Like VMware, as you know, you might have created hundreds of virtual machines for your customer, but at the end of the day, these customers are paying a lot of money to maintain and support and manage as a part of licensing, as a part of support fee, and so on and so forth. These customers, at the end of the day, they want to migrate to the cloud, but they don't know how. And they don't know like how much it's going to cost, how much effort is that, and so on and so forth. That is where Ravello comes in. Ravello is a overlay cloud service. Bottom line is customers can take their existing VMware solutions as is, they can take it and move it to the Ravello cloud service, no changes. And the good thing about Ravelo in this case is one is Ravelo can run on top of OCI, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So it is getting the power of OCI plus ease of migration. Number two is Ravelo is good. Customers can point to any cloud vendor. Customers can point to run it in Google, they can run it in AWS, or they can run it in Oracle. So it is an overlay cloud service. Think about it as you are running a hypervisor on top of a hypervisor for technical guys. Finally, the container service. What is a container service? Container service is nowadays DevOps guys, because a couple of you guys mentioned you are working on DevOps side of it. DevOps side nowadays people are working on in Dockers, Mesos, and Kubernetes and so on and so forth, right? So these guys, they want to create an application as a container and run it in its own silo. To bring and maintain this container lifecycle, Oracle is supporting this container service. So these containers can keep various images in the Docker registry, whether it is a public or private. And they can import these images, run it on top of this container service. That is what in this case we're talking about it. So the bottom line is, it doesn't matter which option you go to, Oracle is providing, as I mentioned, globally various data centers and supporting the backbone across different regions and across different data centers. We'll talk about data centers later on. So from a sales perspective, since some of you are in sales focus and architects, so what position you need to do it, and what use case you can position this infrastructure as a service. That depends upon the type of workload your customers are looking for. For example, if the customers are sensitive about running in the cloud and they want to keep it in production in the on-prem, they can still use the cloud solution OCI to develop and test everything, or OCI Classic. And they can also migrate VMware, as I mentioned, as a part of Ravelo. So bottom line, customers can do heterogeneous one, hybrid solution. Certain things they can run it in the cloud, certain things on the cloud, they can connect it using the VCN, Virtual Cloud Network. So this slide, you guys can keep it as a reference and see when do you want to position what solution. Now we have seen these options as a part of compute infrastructure as a service. So the compute one, at the end of the day, is providing ease of migration and the choice of deployment. You can put it in OCI, for example, on VM or BM, bare metal. So coming to the OCI Classic, you know that there is a general purpose. That is what multi-tenants we're talking about it. Dedicated compute is what single tenant, top to bottom, is isolated. But what happens if some of the customers are Sun Solaris customers? For those customers, Sun customers, the Spark Model 300 is supported. So at the end of the day, you need to see what your customers are looking for, because they want to start something simple and they want to go up. They want to add more capacity. If that's the case, you can see here, in the case of a general purpose one, you can use one OCPU as a base starting point, and the customers can increase based upon their requirements, add in more and more. Typically, you can use it for development, testing, maybe POCs, training, and so on and so forth. This OCI Classic, in this case, we're talking about it for general purpose. So general purpose is Oracle is going to take care of all the pieces for you. But in case if you want to, for example, do automation, that is where you can see Oracle OCI Classic, for example, is exposing various APIs, REST APIs, and so on. Same thing for OCI also. OCI is also exposing REST APIs for you, and you can use command line utilities as well. So second option we have seen is dedicated compute. Dedicated compute is dedicated to one single tenant. Look at the graphically on right hand side. Only one tenant, and it is allocated, it is assigned to. This way, the advantage is this tenant is going to get a predictable performance, because this tenant is not sharing the resources with anyone, completely assigned to one tenant. On the other side, you need to consider is the minimum is 500 OCPU. You need to start the journey, licensing point of view. So that is something to be considered as well as a part of your implementation. But coming to the other features, as we have seen for OCI Classic and general purpose, same thing for dedicated compute as well. The features and functionalities, like for example, taking the backup, or like a virtual networking, or maybe like cloud tooling, such as REST APIs, command line utilities, and so on and so forth. They are available for same. Both options are supporting same features. What happened to Sun one? In this case also is a single tenant, as you can see graphically on right hand side. It is going to use model 300, and it is providing like near zero overhead virtualization. So it is also providing predictable performance, because in this case you are assigned to one single tenant. It is not sharing any resources with anyone, so the performance is predictable. But if you notice the OCPUs in this case, 300, as the name says, is going to use 300 OCPUs. It is going to use for example, is integrated storage. A typical Spark model 300 may look like something graphically on the right hand side. And of course, I'm not going deep into this one because that is not our focus for this week. Just I'm telling about brief history and what options are available. And by the way, these things won't be asked in your exam, so don't worry about it. Just I'm giving a little bit of background. So Spark 300 is providing efficiency, and you can also see from a networking point of view, it is supporting fast connect and VPN options. We'll talk about VPN and fast connect maybe on day 3. So second thing is from a storage perspective, like what are the options on the table? And okay, question from Suman is, could you please repeat engineering systems? Does it resemble with Azure Stack? When I say Oracle engineering systems, is basically hardware and software. Like Oracle engineers the system basically using the Sun hardware and Oracle software. Oracle is creating these machines for the customers. For example, for big data, for database, for Exalogic, and so on and so forth. So what Oracle is done in this case is providing both hardware and software, which is optimized and configured from Oracle Factory. Whereas other vendors like Azure and AWS and so on, what they are doing is they're tying up with partners such as, for example, Dell or HP and so on and so forth. So when they're doing that kind of a marriage between two different companies, obviously there will be challenges in terms of configuration, finger pointing, and so on. But let us not go there. But the main thing is engineering system is, that is what we're talking about it. So for your certification exam, you don't need to worry about engineering system. That won't be asked. So that is beyond. Just I'm still telling you background about what we are going to get into. Okay. Now other question is from Wakar. Does Oracle have orchestrator to manage all such resources, compute, storage, network, at the runtime when needed and release it? Absolutely, because at the end of the day you need to automation, and that is where you can do orchestration scripting, and you can do that. So for example, in the case of OCI Classic, it is supporting orchestration version 2, which you can do whatever you want. When I say orchestration, is basically you have resources such as compute, storage, and network at the high level. If you go deep down, you can specify as granular you want. For example, you can define the IP address range, you can define the security, you can define the firewalls, and so on and so forth. But again, our focus is on OCI side. In the case of OCI, how do you do it? For example, OCI side, you can do same thing using Terraform. I think some of you may be familiar with Terraform. That is open source. You can do that. Okay. I hope that helps. Now the second building block is the storage we need to understand. We talked about the compute. But at the end of the day, compute, we have BM and VM options in the OCI, bare metal. So BM is bare metal, VM is virtual machine. What about storage? Second building block. Storage side, let us understand what is available across in the cloud side. One is a local NVMe, non-volatile memory. In this case, you can pretty much like a flash drive, you can run it on top of it, but it is going to contain, the performance is extremely good in the case of local NVMe because it is a flash and you're running on top of it, you can execute pretty quickly the IO operations. That is good. But the limitation, if you will, is the capacity at the end of the day, right? And how much customers are going to pay for it. That is kind of a pros and cons of local NVMe. Second type of is a block storage, which the DBS on the call you are quite familiar with it. Typically, when you are creating your table spaces and databases on top of it, you may come across like ASM disk groups and so on. That is what in this case we're talking about is block storage. You're creating blocks of storage and you can do it. The advantage in this case of block storage is when you're running OLTP type of applications, online transaction processing applications, the OS is going to take care of it and get the information what you need. On the other side, something is, let us say I want to automate, I want to use a REST service, I want to use API calls, that may not be possible. Second one is in the block storage, again, is having a limitation. We'll talk about what is the capacity you can create it when creating a block storage. But at the end of the day, again, you are running into that information, like limitation wise. Third one is block storage. You cannot store the metadata along with the data. Take an example of, say, in the healthcare industry, a doctor takes an X-ray. If you are taking X-ray, you want to store it, you can store it in your database as a blob, for example. But you cannot store related information for the particular X-ray you are taking. In the sense, information about the patient first name, last name, date of birth, when it is taken, which hospital, who is a technician, who is a doctor, and what part of the body is taken, so on and so forth. These kind of a custom related data, metadata, you cannot create it in the block storage. If that's the case, how do you do it? That is where the object storage comes in. So third one is object storage. Nowadays, as you know, we are coming across various applications, various types of data. Take a look at your Facebook. Take a look at your YouTube. Take a look at your Twitter. All these are pretty much driven by the object storage. So both structured and unstructured data, your video files, audio files, multimedia, and so on and so forth. If you want to store it somewhere, that is where the object storage comes in. Object storage is no limit. You go as much as you want. It's up to you. Then object storage is going to support the standards we're talking about it. Like, for example, REST, it's supporting it. It is supporting various other technologies we are going to discuss later on to make developer-friendly encryption and so on and so forth. And what about like if I want to store large volume for a longer time, maybe 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, or forever? If that's the case, the cheapest solution in the cloud storage-wise Oracle is offering is archive storage. So the archive storage, the fourth one from the left, is the message is archived. Whatever the data you want to do it, your PDF document, your X-ray document, your Word document, whatever you want to store it somewhere forever, especially in the industries such as scientific industries, research institutes, or where customers, they want to keep it for a longer time due to legalities and compliance and so on. Archive storage is the way to go. Then file and database backup. Because sometimes customers, they want to use file system. Like they want to create their directories and so that various enterprise applications, they can share these files and directories. They can use file storage. We'll talk about it later on. Database backup, because you are most of your DBAs, you want to take a backup of your database then that is where the database backup comes in, which is using the tools that DBS are familiar with, like RMAN, for example. It is going to use it. Finally, the storage cloud software appliance. The software appliance is a tool as a gateway between the customer on-premise data center to the cloud. So it's basically, think about it, it is a gateway to the cloud. What does that mean? When the customers are having various applications on the on-prem, such as JD Edwards or PeopleSoft or eBiz and so on, each of these applications require certain files and certain documents, and they want to keep it only for those guys. For example, somebody is working in finance, only finance guys can access it. If somebody in HR, only HR guys can access it. So these kind of different directories, and we want to create file systems and so on, that is where the appliance comes in. It is going to sync up automatically these files, whatever these on-prem applications are created, and it is going to sync up with the storage cloud, like various containers and buckets and so on. So at the end of the day, you can see various options are available for you from a storage perspective. Based upon your customer needs, you may go for one or more of these options. That is where when you are architecting, you need to see what are the options for me on the table. What one I can use it. Okay? So storage by the infrastructure we talked about is object storage, archive storage, backup, and appliance support, data transfer service. So what is a data transfer service? Data transfer service is, think about it, if your customer is having, say, let us say 100 terabytes of data, just a number, 200 terabytes of data, but they want to move to the cloud, what is the biggest challenge? The biggest challenge is how can I move this ton of data to the cloud? And that is where Oracle is offering data transfer service. So Oracle is going to help the customer to send the data offline, and Oracle is going to upload for the customers. So storage cloud at the end of the day is providing reliable, secure manner, and of course standard based, as I mentioned, REST and so on. Object storage is, as I mentioned, is a limitless. You can go as much as you want. That is elastic. So based upon your customers, they can go as much they want from a storage point of view. And these features such as scalability, elasticity, and so on are available in the storage cloud point of view. And this information, when the customers are providing, the data is replicated within a data center. For example, let us say if the customers are using Chicago as a data center, within the Chicago data center, Oracle is having what is called availability domain. There are 3 availability domains. We'll talk about it later on. Oracle is going to replicate across these availability domains so that customer data is available and always whenever they want. So that is how Oracle Storage Cloud is providing a robust architecture and providing 11 nines of data durability. So customer data is durable and it is geo-replicated. For example, if my primary data center is Chicago, my standby could be, let us say, Phoenix or maybe Ashburn in Washington, D.C. I can do that. This way, whenever my primary is not available, I can go for standby to get my data. Archive, as I mentioned, is the cheapest one, and you can provide archival storage in the most cost-effective storage in the industry. No one is offering this kind of an effective solution, either is Azure or AWS. So, but from a technology perspective, under the covers, archive storage is offering pretty much same thing like standard storage. The only difference in this case is when you're retrieving the data, when you're downloading a particular file, particular document, archive storage contains an additional step. That is where it is supporting is a restoration. We'll talk about it later on while discussing storage side of it. And database backup service, as I mentioned, the DBS on the call, it is using typical RMAN utility, what DBS are familiar with, to push the data into storage cloud, basically database backup service. You can back up your entire database in this way. Now, When you're using a database backup service, you can go as much capacity you want based upon your requirement, and Oracle is taking care of security and encryption and so on when the data is at rest. So as a part of database backup service, Oracle is providing data protection and data management. So data is protected, encrypted. In case any one of the disk drives is corrupted, but Oracle is going to do it self-healing. Automatically is going to find out another copy and create it for you. You don't need to worry about it. Oracle is looking into that part. Now, appliance, as I mentioned, is a gateway. Is a gateway to the cloud, which you can use it basically to sync up the various applications and their directories and files from the on-prem to the cloud. Here is another advantage for developers' point of view is it is using already the DBAs and CIS admins are familiar with NFS and network file systems. So it's pretty much they can use the same tool, same technology what they are familiar with, and they can use it. From a business point of view, it is good because it's offering caching. So the frequently accessed data, you don't need to go all the way and fetch the information from storage or from a particular location. That information is cached for you. And as a consultant, you can define it for your customer what is the cache size is going to be. So you can work on the caching side of it as a part of this storage appliance. So some of the features of storage appliance include is well-known interface, as I mentioned, NFS for example, and it is user-friendly because already sysadmins DBS are familiar with NFS. It is using same POSIX compliant like Unix and Linux flavor. Then it is data is secure, data is protected because it's using, for example, to sync up the information from gateway to the storage cloud. It's using like HTTPS. Message way you can protect it, the tunnel. And caching, we talked about it, and it's supporting the various tools for the DevOps teams. For example, somebody is comfortable with more UI, user interface, and a browser-based one, they can use it to manage these file systems and provide the access, define the properties, and so on. But someone want to automate it and they want to run the scripts and so on, they can use it command line interfaces or REST APIs. So all these options are available from a DevOps point of view. So finally, data transfer service. So what is a data transfer service? Basically think about it. Let me tell you an analogy to understand the concept. That way it's easy for you to get what is it doing under the covers. For example, let us say you want to give your colleague a thumb drive with a document they are looking for. What you do, you basically copy the file and give it to them, and of course they will do that virus scan just to be safe side. Then they will copy the file and they will give it back your thumb drive. Once you receive the thumb drive, is up to you. You want to delete it and maybe reuse for another purpose. That is what you do, right? In typical, whenever you want to exchange the files between developers or different friends or colleagues and whatnot. Same approach if you think about it in the enterprise in the cloud way, like here is a data transfer one, we're talking about it. Let us say you want to send 100, 200, 400 terabytes of data to the cloud. How do you do it? That is where this bulk data movement, you can do it using a data transfer service. So let me pause here and see if there are any questions before going to the network side of it. Okay, Walker is saying that kindly elaborate limitations of block storage. I could not get it. Don't worry about it right now, Walker. We are going to revisit these concepts again one more time while we were talking about OCI. Right now, we are still at the very high level. We are at the 10,000 foot level. So tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we'll go more towards OCI focus. At that point, we are going to talk about this block volume, storage volume one more time related to OCI because that is what you are interested in from a certification point of view. Right now, we are setting the stage at this point. Okay. Any other questions?
Hey, Jeevi, this is Nishi. Do you want to take a break now or you want to continue?
I think this is a perfect time because since we're talking about network side, let us pause here and take a break. We'll come back and talk about network side of it. So let me transfer the...
Okay, so do you want to make me a presenter?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just give me a second.
Thank you. So good. Again, everyone, I think this is Nishi here. We want to do the attendance now. And as we mentioned earlier, we will, roll call, and we would like you guys to acknowledge when your name is called. Do not acknowledge before that.